Test. Test 1, 2, 3. Bismillah.
Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in, amma ba'd. Before we move forward with our second session, a few points of reminder and enlightenment. The first is that this is considered to be Dawra Ilmiya Mukathafa, an intensive workshop in which the normal pace and the normal speed is not going to be done here. There's a little bit of time, there's a lot of information, and there are many people, a mixed crowd and a mixed audience. So it's an intensified workshop. So the speed in which I speak, the speed in which I'm speaking, how fast I'm talking, and the amount of information that we're racing through and running through is special time of the normal environment. This book could be explained in 3 months, 2 months, a month, 6 months, etc. You understand this? But this is a summarized version and an intensified course. So please no one, inshallah, become annoyed or disheartened or distraught by the speed in which we're trying to accomplish something, and in which the main points, the most important points, and most importantly, the things which will allow you to go back to the book itself and benefit from and pick up on, in English or in Arabic. When you read the English translation, when you read the original Arabic work, when you read the Sharh of Shaykh ibn Uthaymeen, or you listen to the audio of Shaykh ibn Uthaymeen, or other scholars today and other students of knowledge who have or plan to explain the book. That the purpose and the goal is for me to give you the necessary tools and the necessary keys to pinpoint what you need to pinpoint. And you can take your time and take your ease with the rest of the book and the rest of the fawaid and the rest of the detailed rulings when you want to. I would understand this, inshallah ta'ala. That's with regards to this workshop and any other type of Dawra Ilmiya Mukathafa. Khairan, inshallah. And this is how we were taught and how it was explained to us by the ulama in city. One book that would take 6 months will be done in 1 day, or be done in 3 days. I would understand this with this type of this style. So inshallah, hopefully no one get annoyed, or it's too fast, or it's too much, or you're rushing through it too much, or I thought we were going to do the extensive version or the sharh. Khairan, inshallah. Tayyib. Moving forward. Number 9. He says, التمتع بخصال الرجولة. He says, enjoying and practicing the traits of manhood. We explained that point, and the same applies to womanhood as well. And you can see here, he says, min ash-shaja'a. He says, bravery and courage. Many of these things have been previously mentioned, right? What I mean? We previously mentioned them. Point number 10, hajr al-tarafuh. He says, avoiding luxury. Avoiding luxury. Whether you say luxury or whether you say unnecessary luxury. Now, the concept of zuhd And luxury, what's halal, what's haram from the dunya. Can a student of knowledge, can a righteous Muslim have expensive things, nice things, costly things, rare things? We have explained these rulings in detail in many classes and workshops. If you wanted to go back to one, then I would send you to the explanation of Sahih Muslim Kitab, the chapter of Zuhd and heart softening narrations. Maybe 2 years ago in Toronto, we explained the entire chapter and we gave an explicit, detailed discussion of what is and what isn't Zuhd, and the proper understanding of Zuhd, and the proper position of the proper position of Zuhd. Because many Muslims, they have a misunderstanding. Okay, libas al-shuhra, clothing of fame. What's meant by clothing of fame? You can't have on something that no one else has. You can't wear something that no one else has. We've explained this in detail. So point number 10, he says, hajr al-tarafu. He says, avoiding luxury, avoiding unnecessary luxury. And that's it's been previously explained. And the wisdom behind this is, if you can do without, and if you can do with just a little, and if you can get by the bare necessities, there's which you'll be uncomfortable. There's never a time in which you'll be uncomfortable. There's never a situation that you can't survive because you can do without. And if Allah gives you more and blesses you with more, alhamdulillah, everything's fine. Secondly, you can never be purchased and bought out by worldly people, because you can control yourself and control your desires. You don't need to survive off of these luxurious, comfortable things. Khairan, inshallah ta'ala, that's the wisdom with regards to this point for the seeker of knowledge. And it does not mean, the Shaykh himself doesn't mean, nor the Quran and the Sunnah, most importantly, that a person cannot have fine things in Islam. And it's haram to have fine things in Islam. And it's haram to have a balance. al-i'radu an majalis al-laghu la tata' bisat man yaghshawna fi nadihim al-munkar wa yahtikuna astar al-adab متغاضيا عن ذلك فإن جنايتك على العلم وأهله عظيمة. He says here, turning away from the circles and the sittings, the meetings of false talk, idle talk, nonsense, gossip. Don't sit, and it's not specific to a coffee shop or a cafe. It could be in the masjid. It could be in your home, in your car, on an airplane, wherever you are. Any majlis. And you could also be standing up as well, in which people are cursing, speaking obscenities, or if they're not saying something which is haram, they're just talking foolishness, just baseless gossip. Those of no benefit. Everyone understand this? This point here, we know that the Shaykh, he died many years ago, and he wrote the book many years ago. If the Shaykh was alive today, and he could see how some students of knowledge, people who call themselves scholars and have knowledge, how they behave and what they talk about when they sit down, and how they laugh and joke and mock people and backbite people and talk about things, only Allah knows what the book will be like today. And we know that Shaykh Bakr rahimahullah, he was one of the ulama that Allah Azza wa Jal had blessed with some type of foreknowledge. There were many problems that he would mention and he would explain many years before they came to the surface. Many of the problems that we suffer from today in da'wah and ilm and tulab al-ilm and this shaykh and that shaykh, the shaykh, he wrote about them over 20 years ago. And he warned from them as if he had foreseen those problems before they began to spread and became staple practices today. Majalis al-laghu, don't sit in which people are talking nonsense and people are backbiting and slandering and people are speaking about things which they should not be speaking about, whether it's halal or whether it is haram. Everyone understand this? It may not necessarily be haram. They're not cursing, they're not backbiting, but it's foolishness. And your time as a student of knowledge is more valuable than gold. Your time is more valuable than the most precious gold. And when you're sitting laughing and joking and this and that unnecessarily, or the impermissible or the disliked way, it will destroy ilm. And it will destroy your da'wah, and it will take the respect out of the people's hearts for you. Khairan, inshallah. Point number 12. الإعراض عن الهيشات التصون من اللغط والهيشات فإن الغلط تحت اللغط وهذا ينافي أدب الطلب. Point 12 is just like point 11, a bit more specific, and we said this already, is being loud, unnecessarily clamorous. Clamorous. You make noise in an unnecessary manner. You should be peaceful, you should be serene. But this isn't to be taken to the extreme. And one must take into mind his culture, his location, and his time. You understand this? And how a person naturally speaks and naturally behaves. And most of these points, if not all of them, but most of them talking about how you walk, how you talk, how you dress, how you sit, you must take into relation your culture and your time and your place. Your culture and your time and your place. You may come from a place in which if you wear tattered clothes or really basic clothes, the people will look down upon you. They'll look down upon you, they'll scorn you, and they won't listen to you, or they may accuse you of having a minute if you don't care about your appearance too much. And it doesn't mean that that's unnecessary luxury. You understand this? It doesn't necessarily mean that. Or you may be in a place in which going to the coffee shop or the cafe is a prime opportunity to give dawah. A prime opportunity in which that's where the people congregate. And to take the people away from coffee is like taking away their spleen. They have to have the ability to go sit, drink tea, and drink coffee. And there are many parts of the world like that, if not here, and which is a staple part of the what? Of the society. And if you read the history of coffee, you will be shocked. And you understand where coffee comes from and why coffee was made such a popular drink. Coffee was the replacement for khamr. Coffee was the replacement for khamr. I.e., the pagan Arabs before the epoch of Islam, they loved alcohol, just like most other societies. They love to drink. They love to enjoy liquor. And when Islam came and it gave the different rulings of liquor, the different stages of the rulings of liquor, how many are they? Anyone know? 3. The first one is? لا تقربوا الصلاة وأنتم سكارى. La, that's not the first level. Nor is there only 3 levels. There are actually 4 levels. لا, that's not the first level. هذا هو اذكر الآية بتمامها ومن ثمرات النخيل. Sharp. You got to be razor sharp with the Quran. You got to know it. Allah says ومن ثمرات, from fruits of date palm trees and grapes, you take what? Sakaran wa rizqan hasana. You take a sweetness. One translation, another translation is sakar, drunkenness, wa rizqan hasanan, and a good provision. First and foremost, Allah praised the fermentation of dates and grapes and things like this. In that ayah from Surah 16, An-Nahl, right? Then after that came what? Quickly, Ikhwan. They ask you about gambling and alcohol. قُلْ فِيهِمَا إِثْمٌ كِبِيرٌ, much sin. وَمَنَافِعُ لِلنَّاسِ, but many benefits for men. So Allah Azza wa Jal, He mentioned that there is benefit in khamr, and there's benefit in gambling and games of chance. But the sin is worse. The sin is greater. That's level number 2. Level number 3 was لا تقربوا الصلاة وأنتم سكارى حتى تعلموا ما تقولون ولا. You gotta be quick. Allah says, don't go near the masjid while you're drunk. لا تقربوا الصلاة. Don't go near the places of prayer while you're drunk. But khamr was not prohibited. You can drink, you can get drunk, as long as it's not time to pray. The last and final stage was إنما الخمر والميسر والأنصاب والأزلام إيش؟ رجس, filth. Allah says drinking, gambling, and these things are filthy and from the handiwork of the shaitan. فَاجْتَنِبُوهُ, avoid it. So there are 4 stages of khamr mentioned in the Quran. Everyone understand this? So before the epoch of Islam, the Arabs, they loved to drink. And obviously after the epoch of Islam, they could no longer drink. And drinking was a staple part of their society. Death, birth, marriage, war, social gatherings, they needed to have a social drink. So what was their replacement? Their replacement was qahwa. And qahwa, the word itself, is an ancient term for khamr. It's an ancient word for alcohol, for liquor. So they replaced wine with coffee. So you can't drink, nor can you drink coffee. What would it be? How would it be? They wouldn't what? Wouldn't be able to survive. We have to have what? Something. So the word qahwa, then it turns into the different variations of the word. It says, coffee morning, right? Sister's coffee morning. And I would advise you all to read the history of coffee. We did a 5 minutes of faida on this a few years ago called Major Beans. Read the history of coffee. You'll benefit many things when you read about where coffee comes from and how it was discovered and used. Khayran, inshallah ta'ala. So, moving forward, number 13. في القول مجتنبا الكلمة الجافية فإن الخطاب اللين يتعرف النفوس الناشزة. He says, be gentle, be wise. And we say, he says, and be smooth when you speak. Who's not too close. Someone who's abrasive, by saying it in the proper way. Everyone understand it? Speaking it in a what? Not what you say, but what? How you say it. طيب, number 14, التأمل. التحلي بالتأمل فإن من تأمل أدرك وقيل تأمل تدرك. He says, is reflection, deep reflection. Ponder. Don't be hasty. Don't be reckless. Meditate on it. Think about it. Take it in. Digest it. Think about what is being said. Think about what is being done. Evaluate it. Calculate it thoroughly. And then you can understand. And then you can, this right here is a lecture in itself. The importance of understanding. The importance of reflecting and not being reckless and hasty and making a decision or a determination. Everyone understand this? And inshallah, point number 15, he says, الثبات والتثبت. تحلى بالثبات والتثبت لا سيما في الممنات والمهمات وفيه الصبر والثبات في التلقي وطي الساعات في الطلب على الأشياخ فإن من ثبت نبت. He says firmness, being firm, الثبات والتثبت, and reaffirming yourself. He says you have to, when you're sitting in a class or a lecture or you're studying, you have to persevere. You have to be strong. You can't just quit and give up. Someone says something about you, you quit, you stop. You suffer, you get sick, you quit, you stop. Your parents are angry with you or displeased, come home. We want you to be an engineer or a doctor. Don't go overseas and study. You can't just quit and stop. Someone's upset with you. You may have a cousin or a brother or a family member says, I don't want to talk to you no more. You went overseas to Saudi Arabia. You're not being a doctor. Don't talk to me no more. Wallah, these are true stories that we're mentioning. Leave and get your exit visa because someone is upset with you. You gotta be firm. Knowledge does not come to someone that does not have thick skin. You must persevere. You must outbear. You must outlast. Everyone understand this? You have to be firm. Your foot hurts sitting in a class for all of those hours. Your eyes are red. Your hand hurts from writing so much. It's so much information. You gotta outlast. And this, perhaps, I would say, is one of the most important points. One of the most important things, and the thing to me that determined those who stayed in Medina and benefited, and those who left and those who quit. They were not firm. And don't think that it's a simple and easy thing. It sounds easy. I can say it easily now. But when you're living that life, it's not that easy. Trust me. Your grandfather is sick. What do? Stay in Medina or come home and visit your grandfather before he dies of cancer. If you leave, if you take a period of leave, you may not be able to make it back to Medina. Your visa may expire. It's a new administration. There's a new president. There's a new principal of the school. You can't come back. What do? What do? Your wife is upset. She's displeased. I can't stay here no more. We don't have no food. We don't have no money. I can't live like this. I'm from the UK. I'm from America. I'm from Canada. I can't live in Yemen. There's a scorpion. There's a rat. There's this. I can't stay here. What are you going to do? Are you going to be firm or are you going to quit? And only Allah knows how many brothers we've seen melt like a stick of butter in a frying pan, literally melt in front of these problems and these hardships. So you have to be firm. You really want to seek knowledge. As far as if you just want the convenient knowledge, sitting in a class, wearing a beard, you have a thobe, you have a Parker pen, then that's what? That's easy. That's what? That's easy. But actually learning and studying year after year after year after year, that takes a great deal of firmness. And the is only from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. يُثَبِّتُ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا. Allah grants the believers firmness. Khairan, inshallah. Last but not, that was the 15th point. So these points here are the adab, the manners. This is the etiquette of the student of knowledge regards to himself. And you can all of them are related. They're all what? Related and connected in one way or another. Taqwa, niyyah, ikhlas, mahabba, khashya, ta'ammul, rujula, shaja'ah. They're all connected. And they're all summed up in being a good Muslim and trying your best to strive to be the best Muslim possible. And this is before you pick up a book or a pen or sit in a class is that you have to be right with yourself. You have to constantly maintain this rightness. You feel something wrong with your intention, you have to check it. You feel you losing patience, you have to check yourself. You're being too luxurious in the dunya, too many things. You have to do what, Baqawi? You have to check yourself. You have to maintain. But before you maintain, you have to establish. And then you do what? There's maintenance. Abu Sa'id, Siyana. Amir? طيب, moving forward. Al-Fasl al-Thani, كيفية الطلب والتلقي, is actually how to study. I.e., the etiquette of the seeker of knowledge with someone else. Someone that you're studying with or learning from or reviewing with. Now we begin to speak about the technicalities. After we discuss the what? The spirituality. Everyone with me or not? Everybody with me? The spirituality. Now we're discussing the what? The technicalities, the detailed issues with regards to how to seek knowledge professionally. And how to seek knowledge systematically. Everyone understand this? And not in a chaotic, haphazard manner. خيرا إن شاء الله. He says, الفصل الأول كيفية الطلب ومراتبه. من لم يتقن الأصول علم الوصول ومن رام العلم جملة ذهب عنه جملة وعليه فلا بد من التأصيل والتأسيس لكل فن تطلبه بضبط أصله ومختصره على شيخ متقن لا بالتحصيل الذاتي وحده وآخذا الطلب بالتدرج. First and foremost is how to seek knowledge and the levels of seeking knowledge. Number one is you have to lock down the foundation. You have to lock down the fundament. You have to lock down the base. You have to have a strong foundation before you get into the subsidiary issues, before you get into the differences of opinion, before you get into the exciting, exotic knowledge. You have to be fundamentally sound. And this is one of the most important lessons that you should learn from sports and organizing professional sports. Every superstar in any sport or profession is a master of the fundamentals. A master of the fundamentals. And the first thing that you do in the United States, everyone wants to be a basketball player. I want to go to the NBA. I want to play. You go to a basketball camp in the summer or in the winter, in school, middle school, high school, college. They don't teach you fancy moves. They don't teach you nothing about razzling and dazzling that the people see on the TV and the kids want to be like. What do they teach them, Alameen, in those basketball camps? Basics. They do what? Simple, easy, fundamental things, and locking them down, mastering them. And then you move on to your specific talents and specific moves. And you see the master moving and doing this fancy move. That's after years of him locking down the fundamentals. And the same applies to ilm. There's certain brothers, certain people, they can speak about all types of fancy issues. You ask them a basic ruling with the proof, with the lid, break it down. They can't give it to you because they just have sound bites. Qala fulan, qala shaykh fulan, this one said, and such, and that's it. That's all they have. But actual fundamental, tangible ilm is not there. And that's because they were not taught and they were not nourished in the proper manner. It's to be fundamentally sound. Fundamentally what? Sound. And that's what the usul, learning the foundations. If you want knowledge all at once, you'll lose knowledge all at once. Then the Shaykh, he mentions, secondly, a very important point of he says, at-tadarruj. He says progressive steps. Progressive steps. You cannot do it all at once. It does not happen in one day or 1 week or 1 month or 1 year. And this is one of the things that befalls the student of knowledge that has a great passion for ilm. The first thing you do when you go to Medina, you want to sit in every single class. Sheikh, here's the class, this class, the master. You're going to do everything. And an experienced brother or an experienced student says, slow down. Relax just a little bit. You can't sit in 10 classes in one day. You can't sit in 15 classes in one day. You have to select, you have to pick, and most importantly, sit in a class that is appropriate for your level. It is of no benefit you sitting here in this class, which is a beneficial class, and you haven't learned Arabic. You haven't studied Sarf. You haven't learned the basics of Tawheed, let alone study this expert or this high-level book. Everyone understand this? And this is something which is very dangerous. And this is a manifestation of sincerity and of thabat. If you're not sincere, then there's no need to learn the fundamentals. Because when I go to teach and speak and pick up the microphone, I'm not talking about the fundamentals. I'm talking about the attractive knowledge, the romantic knowledge that everyone wants to hear. that brings the crowds, that brings the money, that brings the women, that brings the fame and the fortune. So sincerity oftentimes is manifested and by a person sitting down and learning the fundamentals. Because the fundamentals are oftentimes dry and boring. Dry and boring. Who wants to hear the basic fundamentals? We want to hear the exciting stuff, right? Everyone understand this? Can we not agree on this or not? So when you learn the fundamentals and you take progressive steps, not only does it benefit your talab, but it is also a manifestation of Allah. The Shaykh he mentions two ayat from the Quran al-Kareem. وَقُرْآنًا فَرَقْنَاهُ لِتَقْرَأَهُ عَلَى النَّاسِ عَلَى مُكْثٍ وَرَتَّلْنَاهُ تَرْتِيلًا. He says وَنَزَّلْنَاهُ تَنزِيلًا. وقال تعالى وقال الذين كفروا لولا نزل عليهم القرآن جملة واحدة كذلك نثبت به فؤادك ورتلناه ترتيلا. فأمامك أمور لابد من مراعاتها في كل فن تطلبه حفظ مختصر فيه ضبط على شيخ متقن عدم الاشتغال بالمطولات وتفريق المصنفات قبل الضبط بالإتقان لأصله لا تنتقل من مختصر آخر بلا موجب فهذا من باب الضجر اقتناص الفوائد والضوابط العلمية جمع النفس للطلب والترقي فيه والاهتمام والتحرك للتحصيل والبلوغ إلى ما فوقه حتى تفيض إلى المطولات بسبالة أو بسابلة موثقة. Here, have to do number one, memorize a summarized book on the subject. Memorize a summarized book on the subject. Shaykh al-Albani says the hadith is sahih, and Imam al-Bukhari says the hadith is daif. Why should I even answer your question and give you my time and you haven't even memorized Nukhbat al-Fiqh? Not saying that you haven't, I'm saying hypothetically. The first step to learning ilm al-hadith and the difference of opinion of the ulama of hadith and this and that and hasan li ghayri, he says hifdhu mukhtasaran fihi, is to memorize a summarized book on the subject. Not the sharh, not the explanation, not the ijazah, but to do what? The sheer fact of what? Memorizing it. What matan have you memorized in ilm al-hadith? So if I asked you last night, I said, what have you memorized? What mutun? He says not one. Tayyib. I'm not answering your question. This is the first step of the systematic way of seeking ilm, the Shaykh says. Number two, ضَبْطُهُ عَلَى شَيْخٍ مُتْقِنٍ, is that you understand this matan, you can read it properly, you can pronounce his words properly with a valid or with a qualified and certified teacher. A certified teacher. In other words, someone who studied the book as well. Someone that was taught the book as well, properly. Someone that you sit in front of. And this is another trick of the shaitan. Your teacher doesn't have to be the greatest scholar. Don't think that you're going to go to Medina and Ibn Taymiyyah is going to teach you these small books. It can be someone who isn't known. Someone who he isn't a household name, but he's a certified teacher. And he knows the book in and out. And sometimes you may get more knowledge or more special attention from someone who's unknown than someone who's what? Famous and popular. Shaykh Abdul Muhsin Abad, Hafidhullah, the grandfather of the Mashayikh of Medina, of the current age. How many people sit in this class every night in the Prophet's Masjid? Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. And the cause of hadith, Shaykh Ali Tuwajiri, Hafidhullah, was teaching us tafsir. And he was talking about the different problems today among the tulab al-ilm and the mashayikh and ulama. The fitan and the mashakil that the people have, and the hizbiyah and all of the problems that the people have. And he says from the virtues of Shaykh Abdul Muhsin Hafidhullah is that you could sit with him for 20 years and he wouldn't even know your name. You could sit with him for 20 years and he would walk right by you and he wouldn't know who you are. I.e., he's not connecting you to himself. And he's not demanding your loyalty and your service and you spread his name and his legacy in your country like other people demand. So you may look at it as a bad thing. I studied with him for 20 years and he doesn't know me. Shaykh Tuwajiri says that's a virtue of him. In other words, the Shaykh has blind justice. I come, I teach my class, I spread fawaid, you take it and that's it. You don't have to have a personal relationship. You don't have to know me. You don't have to come over my house. You don't have to visit me. You don't have to do anything for me. You don't have to spread anything for me. That's not my job. That's not my objective. Everyone understand this? So the benefits you get from Shaykh Abdul Muhsin is not the same as someone that you can actually sit with and talk with and explain to you situations. You can mention problems. Yeah, Shaykh, in America it's like this. It's not what you think it is. Yeah, Shaykh. No, that's not right. Don't look at the television. I'm telling you, this is how it is in America. And this is the rule, and this is how banks are in America. Special attention. A specific tarbiyah. You can read books to these people. They can explain them to you. That's not the same as a sheikh that has 50 different classes into a lab and people calling. You're not going to get that much attention because he has too many hands and arms that are tied up. Everyone understand this? So that he says, sheikhin mutqin. As long as the teacher is certified and qualified, he knows this book well. And oftentimes, you can study a book with someone that only knows one field better than someone who knows other fields. Because this Hanbali sheikh, the only thing that he knows is Hanbali fiqh. That's it. You ask him a question about aqeedah, he says, ask someone else. A question about hadith, he says, fas'al ghayri. You ask him a question about seerah, he says, please ask somebody else. But you ask him anything about the Hanbali method, he can tell you like that. Off the back of his hand. It's there, in this volume, in this page, he said this, fulan, because that's the only thing that he deals with. He's a master of his craft. Everyone understand this? Number 3. He says, not busying yourself with big books and long books and specific works before you've mastered the fundamentals. Number 5, writing down, securing and locking down. Or number 4, he says, لا تنتقل من مختصر إلى آخر. Don't go from one small book to another unless there is a necessity. Do not move from one small book to another unless you have to. And if you do so, then it proves that you don't have firmness and you aren't patient. You quit, you give up, and you become a jack of all trades and a master of none. Everyone understand this? And this is something which is very, very, very common today. How many books did you finish and study? 0. Well, I read this chapter, and I read 10 pages here, and I sat with this sheikh for this. What is this? You haven't studied one book from cover to cover. Ala shaykhin mutqinin, with a qualified and certified teacher. That's a huge problem. And obviously the people, they want to suffer. The people are going to suffer with this sporadic, haphazard knowledge. You're going to have people that are tape recorders. That's all they are. They hear you say it, they quote it, and they don't know what it means. I would understand this or not. Moving forward, he says, number 5 is writing down the fawaid. Writing down those principles that you come across in those books. And many of the mashayikh, they would show us in Medina to write down the points in the beginning of every book. Can I see your book, please? How long have you had this book? A year. A year. Try it. You have a book stamp? And this first page here should be your own index of fawaid. Not in the table of contents. But you make your own fawaid. And you also make your own summarized version. Everyone understand this? Dabt. You write them down because when you're studying for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, you don't have that much time to go back to this book and that book and read it again. You needed to be able to quick, page 26, bang. You need a quick reference that's familiar to you. So once you finish the metin or a book that you're reading, he says you write down the fawaid yourself. And you write down the dawabit, and you iqtinas, you hunt them. And you don't just read it and say, I'll come back to it later. Never ever say that, I'll come back to it later. La, you'll forget. You become preoccupied. You may old age, children. Your son may come and rip out a page out of your book. Take a crayon to your books. Anyone who's overseas, he knows that children write in books. Children rip. He brings the book to you ripped in half. He takes a crayon, he's writing all your books. SubhanAllah. You write it down. If I ask you, do you have a personal journal? You have a personal journal, your own diary. What is it made of? Leather? Get one that's leather, inshallah. One that's going to last. One that you can pass down to your children or your students one day. Inshallah ta'ala. Khayran, inshallah. We don't go too much but it's important when it comes to being an actual what? Disciple. Right, moving forward. Number 6. He says, جمع النفس للطلب والترقي في الاهتمام. طيب. He says concentration. He says جمع النفس is to focus on one thing at one time and then graduate step by step until you reach what you're looking for. Take the small books to the bigger books. And that's a long discussion itself, of course, to mutun. Mutun are meant to be mutun. They're manuals. Once you finish them, once you've learned them, once you've understood them, memorized them, you discard them. And you move on to the bigger, longer, extensive works. Moving forward. He goes on to speak on the virtues of the mutun, the excellence of the mutun. Naam. He says, وَقَدْ كَانَ الطَّلَبُ فِي قُطْرِنَا يمر بمراحل ثلاث لدى المشايخ في دروس المساجد للمبتدئين ثم المتوسطين ثم المتمكنين. He says, in our day, back in the day, the old days, the good old days, he says, the mashayikh, they would teach the students in 3 levels. Number 1, the beginner. Number 2, al-mutawassit, intermediate. And number 3, al-mutamakkin, someone who's advanced, strong. ففي التوحيد 3 الأصول وأدلتها والقواعد الأربع ثم كشف الشبهات ثم كتاب التوحيد. هذا في توحيد العبادة. وفي توحيد الأسماء وصفات العقيدة الواسطية ثم الحموية ثم التدمرية فالتحاوية مع شرحها. He says, as far as the Tawheed, what you should study and memorize, what's the order? First is Thalathatul Usul, the 3 principles of Islam, the 3 fundamental principles of Islam. Then he mentions Al-Qawaid al-Arba'. And don't say, as one once said, Al-Qawaid al-Arba'a, Al-Qawaid al-Arba' without a tan marbuta. Number 3, Kashf al-Shubuhat. And then Kitab al-Tawheed. He says this is with regards to Tawheed al-Ibadah. Tawheed al-Ibadah. It's a very long discussion with regards to these books and the categories of a Tawheed. What's important is that the ulama of Islam, some of them may say Kitab al-Tawheed, then Kashf al-Shubuhat. Whereas you can't refute anything until you have established that thing. And Kitab al-Tawheed is the establishment, and Kashf al-Shubuhat is the rejection and the rebuttal of the doubts of the people of Shirk. And others, they say the opposite, like Sheikh Bukhari here. And there are reasons why. But one may say, even when you read Kashf al-Shubuhat, the clearly establishes Tawheed in the beginning of the book. And there lies no doubt, Kashf al-Shubuhat is an amazing book, if you actually read it and look at it. So let's take, for example, these books here. Thalathatul Usul wa Adillatuha, the 3 fundamental principles of Islam. If I asked you right now, don't raise your hands, how many of you have memorized this book? How many of you memorized this book? If I said to you, anyone who can raise their hands and give me this book and recite the book to me without any mistakes, I would get on the phone and I'll call my teachers and my professors of Medina, and I will guarantee you acceptance into the university. I will use my personal shafa'ah, intercession. Call my professors that were there for over 10 years. I said, listen, I have such and such, put his name in. How many of you could raise your hand? I'm sure there are some brothers, but everyone should be able to raise their hand. Everyone. Because it's a basic fundamental book. It's a basic fundamental book. And from the virtues of al-usul al-thalatha or thalatha al-usul is that it teaches you never to say something unless you know the proof and the evidence. وَالدَّلِيلُ قَوْلُهُ تَعَالَى وَالدَّلِيلُ قَوْلُهُ تَعَالَى وَالدَّلِيلُ قَوْلُهُ تَعَالَى وَالدَّلِيلُ قَوْلُهُ تَعَالَى. Proof, 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 proof. Speak unless you can back it up. Everyone understand this? You may say something and not mention the proof. But if you're required to mention the proof, you actually what? Have it. Everyone understand this? And that's, as I said before, it's a very long discussion with regards to these books. What's important is, based off of the advice and the words of the author, the Shaykh Rahimahullah, memorize the Surah Thalatha and study it with someone. Shaykhin mutqinin. Whether it's a scholar, a da'i, an imam, a brother, a sister, someone who's qualified. Someone who has memorized the book and recited the book, same, the lineage of ilm, the pedigree of knowledge. Everyone understand this? That you know that you're pronouncing it properly. You know that you're reciting it properly. This is a mistake in the book. Sheikh Muhammad al-Wahhabi never said this. This is from the publishers. It's an error. Take that out. Say it like this. Everyone understand this? Shaykhin mutqin. And then you have the sharh that is explained to you in a simple and easy manner. And you also read the sharh or listen to the sharh. Everyone understand this? Tayyib, moving forward. Al-Qawaid al-Arba'. There's a very long discussion with regards to that book and why that book was written and the time period for which that book was originally made. Moving After that, he says, وفي توحيد الأسماء والصفات is al-Aqidah al-Wasatiyya. And this is one of the best books of Aqidah, Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen mentioned, rahimahullah. One of the most comprehensive books of Islam in a summarized manner. And it doesn't just talk about Allah's names and attributes, al-Istiwa, al-Kalam, Allah Azza wa Jal, but it talks about Qadr, it talks about the Sahaba, about Iman, it talks about the Quran, it talks about the Sunnah, it talks about enjoining the good and forbidding the evil, it talks about gentleness, the way of Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah, it talks about Ijma', it talks about walaha, التي توزن بالأقوال والأعمال. Yeah, he says the statements and the actions. الظاهر والباطن مما لا تعلق بالدين. طيب, توحيد الأسماء والصفات. First move is العقيدة والصديق. Then after that is al-Hamawiyya. Is al-Hamawiyya to be memorized? Is that a matan للحفظ? Or is that a matan for qira'ah and mutala'a? Hamawiyya is an amazing book of Shaykh Islam Ibn Taymiyyah. And the reason why it's so amazing is that Ibn Taymiyyah, rahimahullah, he quotes other people in that book that are accepted to these different madhabs and these different groups. And he proves what those earlier imams said about the tariqat al-salaf and what they said about Allah's attributes and how to understand the Quran. In other words, feeding them rocks. You have a debate or discussion with mukhalif, someone who says, no, you can't say this, that's not literal, it's figurative, etc. Then you quote Bayhaqi, you quote Khattabi, Maliki, you quote Ibn Abdul Barr. You quote to them those people who are accepted and respected to them, and not necessarily someone that they don't accept, as many brothers do. Everyone understand this? You can't quote someone that they look at as being astray. This is what Imam Malik said. Shafi'i said this. Everyone understand this? Moving forward, after that is a Tadmuriyya. And a Tadmuriyya is based off of what principles? How many principles is Tadmuriyya based off of? What are the principles of Tadmuriyya? Two main things in Tadmuriyya. Anybody know? Fadl. Tawheed and Tawheed. Tayyib. Not a bad guess, but that's not the right answer. What does Shaykh Islam talk about in Aqidah Tadmuriyya? No one has ever studied this book? No one ever read this book here? In Birmingham? Where have you brought me, Noor? Tayyib. Afterwards, he says, then al-Aqidah al-Tahawiyya. Al-Tahawi, rahimahullah. Along with his sharh. ما معنى مع شرحها؟ ما معنى مع شرحها؟ What's meant by the sharh of Aqidah al-Tahawiyya? Huh? The right hand, always al-Yameen, never the left. Subhanallah. Some teachers will be very offended if you raise your left hand to them. I'm not, but I'm trying to teach you what's correct. To be a professional, what? Seeker of knowledge, that's what you say, right? Proper, right? Both ways. Tayyib. What is the sharh of Tahawiyya? Ibn Abil Izz al-Hanafi, rahimahullah ta'ala. That's the main sharh. Many people explain the book, but that is the classical sharh. That's an amazing sharh. If you have a debate or discussion with someone who says that they're Hanafi, and they're stood in Allah's names and attributes, talking about the Quran isn't the kalam of Allah, whatever they're saying, what would you give them? That book. But he still might reject it. And that's because Ibn Abil Izz al-Hanafi, rahimahullah, was influenced by Ibn Taymiyyah tremendously. He was influenced by him. He was Hanafi, Ibn Taymiyyah was Hanbali. He died some years later, but there's no doubt, and not me personally, in my humble studies, there's been places in which I've read Ibn Abil Izz's speech, and you'll find the exact same words of Ibn Taymiyyah. Harfan biharf, letter by letter. But in the time in which he lived in a place, you couldn't say Ibn Taymiyyah's name. You'd be locked up or beaten or stripped of the ability to teach. Everyone understand this? Let alone Ibn Qayyim. The beginning of Sharh Tahawiyya is like you're reading Ibn Qayyim's speech. So in actuality, I'm going to say he's not really what? Hanafi. He's an undercover Hanbali. Khairan inshaAllah. Obviously that book is not a beginner's book. It's not a simple, easy book. It's a book that you have to have a good foundation with and have to have strong Arabic for. Khairan inshaAllah. Moving forward, وفي النحو الأجرمية ثم الإعراب للحريري ثم قطر الندى لابن هشام والفية ابن مالك مع شرحها لابن عقيل. As far as Arabic, now one may ask the question, What is the order of these books that he's mentioning here? He mentioned Tawheed, then Lugha al-Arabiyyah. Shouldn't Lugha al-Arabiyyah come before Tawheed, Nahu Sarf? I.e., he wrote this book for someone that is already speaking Arabic. And when we learn Ajurumiyya and Ibn Aqil and these different books and poems, it's the same as learning Shakespearean English. Proper grammar, high eloquence. You wouldn't teach these books to someone who doesn't know English. Everyone understand this? And this is another capital mistake of learning Arabic. Is busying yourself with grammar before you can even speak and talk. Before you even know basic words and basic vocabulary. These books are made for Arabic speaking people to learn proper grammar. They're not meant for someone who does not speak the Arabic language originally. Everyone understand this? Everyone got this or not? And when you learn the Arabic language, and you become strong in the Arabic language, and you've lived in a country in which they speak the Arabic language, and you understand the Arabic culture, and you think in Arabic, then there's no difference between you and someone from an Arabic speaking country. You're now the same. If he's smarter than you, then he's smarter than you. If you're smarter than him, and you come from Europe, then you're smarter than him. Once you've got the Arabic down packed. Everyone understand this? And there's a difference between learning Arabic and thinking in Arabic. Everyone understand this is what? A difference between the two, as one of my teachers once told me. Khairan, inshallah. Moving forward, he says Ajurumiyya. How many of you memorized Ajurumiyya? Who's memorized Ajurumiyya by heart? Mulhatul I'rab, Qatur al-Nada, and Alfiya ibn Malik. وفي الحديث الأربعين للنووي ثم عمدة الأحكام للمقدسي ثم بلوغ المرام لابن حجر والمنتقى للمجد بن تيمية. As far as in the field of hadith, then first and foremost is 40 hadith of Nawawi, then Umdat al-Ahkam, then Bulugh al-Maram, and then a book called Al-Muntaqa. And Al-Muntaqa is what book? What's meant by Al-Muntaqa? Who knows the answer to this? Al-Muntaqa. What's meant by Al-Muntaqa? Noor. Al-Muntaqa. Ism al-Kitab, bikamilihi. What's meant by Al-Muntaqa? Anybody know? What is the famous book that Shawkani wrote and explained in this book? Nail al-Awtar fi Sharhi Muntaqa al-Akhbar. Everyone understand this? The infamous Nail al-Awtar is based off of this book. Anybody know Nail al-Awtar? You don't know Nail al-Awtar here in this masjid? Allahumma musta'an alameen. Where am I, akhi? We never heard of Nail al-Awtar. You've heard of it, alhamdulillah. What is Nail al-Awtar about? Fatawa. Fiqh. طيب, next point. He says, وفي المصطلح نخبة الفكر لابن حجر ثم ألفية العراقي. As far as mustalah al-hadith, hadith science, then first and foremost is نخبة الفكر. The author, notice he didn't mention al-Bayquniyya, nor did he mention al-Tadhkir. He mentioned نخبة الفكر first. And then after that, he jumped right into Alfiya al-Iraqi. Does this mean that the Shaykh is mentioning these books ala wajh al-isti'ab? These are all of the books, or he's just giving you examples? Because there are many books of mustalah that a person can say you should study before Alfiya al-Iraqi. وفي الفقه مثلا انتبه لكلمة إيش؟ مثلا. He says as an example آداب المشي إلى الصلاة ثم زاد المستقنع للحجاوي أو عمدة الفقه ثم المقنع للخلاف المذهبي والمغني للخلاف العالي. He says as far as fiqh, آداب المشي إلى الصلاة, the etiquette of walking to the prayer. Anyone ever studied this book, memorized this book? Who is this book by? Abdul Wahhab rahimahullah, ahsanta. Then afterwards, Zad al-Mustaqni'. And that's the book that is from the Sharh of what? Sharh al-Mumti'. The famous book, Sharh al-Mumti'. After that he says, Umdat al-Fiqh. Then al-Muqni', which is the asl of al-Khilaf al-Madhhabi, for the difference of opinion within the Hanbali madhhab. And then he says, wal-Mughni, Ibn Qudama lil-Khilaf al-Ali, yani kharij al-Madhhab, comparative fiqh. Notice all of these books here are Hanbali books. And that's because the Shaykh rahimahullah ta'ala, his country, his teachers, his time, his environment, he's going to say what he's proficient in, which was the Hanbali madhab. And it doesn't mean that that's what you have to study. Everyone understand this? The point is, from this chapter, is that there is a systematic way of studying. That's the maqsood. There are steps that you are to take, and you aren't to just jump to any book or any class. You're not to go from lecture to lecture, masjid to masjid. There's a systematic way of what? Studying. Hanafi, Shafi'i, without a madhab. Al-Muhim is that there's what? Ta'sil and tadarruj. Foundation and progressive baby steps. And then you stand up. And then the baby takes a step. And then the baby learns how to walk and jump, etc. You take steps. Everyone understand this? That is what the Shaykh means here. Whether it's a Hanbali school that you study, Shafi'i school, Hanafi school, Maliki school, Zahiri school, no school at all, whatever the school is that you do it in what? فَسَالَتْ أَوْدِيَةٌ بِقَيْهَا فَاحْتَمَلَ السَّيْلُ. I can't hear you. Allah says that the valleys, they do what? Flow بِقَدْرِهَا, and do measure. Step by step, book by book, class by class. And it does not happen in one night, brothers. It cannot happen in 1 year. But the journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. One class is the beginning of your 10-year, 15-year search of knowledge. I understand that one class could change life. And you can make a decisive intention, khalas. Now I'm serious and I want to do it. But if you never ever take a step, and you're continuously hesitant, you'll never ever get anywhere. Khairan inshallah. The author rahimahullah ta'ala then says, وفي الأصول الفقه الورقات للجويني ثم روضة الناظر لابن قدامة وفي الفرائض الرحبية مع شروحها والفوائد الجلية وفي التفسير تفسير ابن كثير وفي أصول التفسير المقدمة لابن تيمية وفي بالعناية بأشعارها كالمعلقات السبع والقراءة في القاموس المحيط للفيروز عبادي رحمه الله تعالى على الجميع. He then mentions books concerning أصول الفقه, rules of inheritance, tafsir, أصول التفسير, the prophetic seerah, and the Arabic language, and its poetry and its literature. Its poetry and its literature, and reading dictionaries, reading the qawamis and the ma'ajim. Everyone understand this? Now, before we move on to the next point and summarize these points before we finish, brothers, we have to understand one thing, and that is knowledge, seeking ilm and reading these books and studying these books in different fields are of two types. We have ilmu ala and ilmu ghaya. Ilmu ala and ilmu ghaya. If someone comes from Saudi Arabia to the UK, to Great Britain, to get a degree in medicine or engineering, and then go back to Saudi Arabia to be an engineer or a physician, the first thing that they're going to study, the first classes that they're going to take, what are they going to be? English. And they have to become proficient in English. And they have to be able to understand, to speak, to read, and to write in what? In English. And then they perhaps will learn and start studying about engineering. So the auxiliary science, the ala, the tool, and then there is the actual destination, the goal. I want to study hadith. I want to master hadith. I want to be an expert in hadith. I cannot pick up a hadith book until I have those auxiliary sciences down packed. The usul, the alat, and that is the Arabic language. I would understand this? Nahu, sarf. Before I get into fiqh, what's halal, what's haram? Is it permissible for me to trim my beard? Can I do this, a fist? Can I get it lined up on my cheek? Is that permissible? Is that haram? What do the ulama say about the beard? Does the beard have to grow all the way long? Before you even get into the ruling of this, you have to know the auxiliary science. That's usul al-fiqh. The tools to allow you to actually play around with the fiqh. Before you read about Ibn Kathir and Ibn Jarir and Al-Qurtubi and what's meant by this verse in the Quran al-Kareem, what's meant by this ayah, you have to understand usul al-tafsir, the systematic theory of tafsir. Everyone understand this? And these are the things that the beginning student of knowledge should focus on the most. The tools that allow you to do anything later on. And not to be hasty. Everyone wants to study fiqh. Everyone wants to read hadith. We all want to read the tafsir books. But you have to slow, take it easy. Pace yourself and learn the tools. And once you have a 10 plate, you can put anything inside of it. Everyone understand this? When you learn the proper manhajiyah of reading books and studying books and sitting in classes, you can study with any teacher and read any book. But if you don't have the tools, you'll be handicapped and you'll be limited at best. At what? At best, meaning at worst, you'll quit and you'll give up because your head will spin from the khilaf and the details and so on and so forth. So we have the principles, we have the auxiliary sciences, and after you've become well-rounded therein and you've locked them down fundamentally, you now discard them. You don't need them anymore. I didn't come to the UK to study English. I'm not going back to Saudi Arabia to teach English. I'm going back there with the degree in what? Engineering, civil engineering. So I've learned usul al-fiqh, I've learned usul al-tafsir, I've learned the Arabic language, and also I've learned usul al-hadith, the basics of hadith. What's meant by hasan, sahih, mursal, da'if, mukhadram, who's a tabi, who's a sahabi, what's meant by these terms? Al-hakim, sahu al-hakim, wafaq al-dhahabi. What does this mean? What are these principles? After you've learned the fundamental principles, there's no longer, I want to read Bayquni and Nukhbat al-Fikr for 20 years and study Al-Fir Iraqi for 20 years. La. Now there is Sahih al-Bukhari. Now there's Muqta Malik. Now there's Musnad Imam Ahmad with the Sharh. You've learned the auxiliary field. Khalas. I've come to the UK to study what? Not English. But I cannot study a master engineering unless I know English. And the same applies to Islam. Everyone understand? The same applies to what? To Islam. So when you go overseas, make sure that you give most of the time to Arabic and learn the usul. If someone left their country from the West and went overseas to Saudi or any other place, any other location that they went to, because knowledge just isn't in Saudi Arabia, any place that you go, and you only studied the alat and you left that country and went back home, wallahi, that would be a benefit. And it wouldn't be a loss. The only thing that I studied in Mauritania was usul al-fiqh, usul al-tafsir, lugh al-arabiya, and mustalah hadith. That's all I studied. What hadith books did you learn there? None. What fiqh did he teach you? Nothing. What tafsir did you read? Nothing. But now that I'm in the UK, I'm in Birmingham, I don't have the ability to stay in Mauritania for 10 years. I have mother, I have family, I have to work, I have children, I have responsibilities. But since I've learned the auxiliary sciences, I have the tools. I can sit in my room and study for hours and teach myself now and listen to the lectures online and benefit because I have the what? The wrenches and the hammers and the screws and the drills. And that's not like the same as one who goes overseas. He goes to Mauritania and he studies in this class and he learns this book and he gets this ijazah, but he has no tools. So when a question is asked or the issue comes up that he didn't hear from his sheikh, he's dumbfounded. And there's a story that was mentioned by Sheikh Ahmed al-Najmi rahimahullah ta'ala. He was explaining this point, and he said that when I was a student, we were all studying, we were studying a book called Ar-Rawda. And he says here, this famous book, that there was a man who memorized the entire book. And we gave him a nickname, and it was a bad nickname. We called him Himar Ar-Rawda, the donkey of Rawda, the ass of Rawda. That was his nickname, that's what we called him. He says he memorized the book from cover to cover without anything missing. Period, comma, colon, hyphen. He had everything memorized by heart, but he didn't understand anything from it. He couldn't give any explanation. He couldn't talk about any issue that we actually dealt with. And the only time we needed him was when we needed the actual text of the book. And we said, Ta'al ya himar ar-rawda. He said, come and bring us. He said, kada, and I said, go back. We don't need you anymore. You understand this? The importance of learning the principles, the usul, and having the alat that allow you to read the book, that allow you to study the book, because you have to be flexible. Everyone cannot go overseas for all of those years. Everyone doesn't have the ability. Some people are too old to go to Medina, but you love knowledge, you want to benefit from knowledge. So if you went overseas for 6 months and came back in Britain for 6 months, and then went another 6 months, you traded and you niyaba. This is a piece of advice that I give to the brothers all the time in America. You can't go to Medina, you can't go to Yemen, you can't go here, you can't go there. Okay, no problem. 4 brothers get together. And the brothers, you make an agreement. We're going to put our money up and we're going to buy an apartment overseas in Egypt. We're going to chip in and we're going to buy an apartment. The necessary things are there. There's a bed, there's a hot water heater, so on and so forth. You're going to go overseas for Egypt for 3 months. And you're not going to work. We're going to send you money and take care of you. Then you're going to leave Egypt. And then the next brother, he's going to go in the same apartment. And he's not going to work. We're going to send him money while the rest of us are in the UK or America working. So no one is losing financially. And everyone has the ability to go overseas, come back, and you remain fresh. And now I can't go back overseas. So I've been working for the last 10 years. I can't go study, so I stopped studying. I got kicked I dropped out, I got sick, I couldn't stay overseas. It's no excuse. It's no excuse if you really want knowledge, and that's what we said to you last night. It's no excuse. If you truly want to seek knowledge, you'll find a way to seek knowledge. And we all know that Umar ibn Khattab, radiallahu anhu, he used to do this, right? In Sahih Bukhari. He says, I had a neighbor from the Ansar. One day he would go to the Messenger of Allah, and I would work. And one day I would go to the Messenger of Allah, and what? He would work. And I would tell him what I heard from the Messenger of Allah that day, and he would tell me what he heard from the Messenger of Allah, what? That day. How many of us do this today? But how many of us say that we can't go overseas because I don't have enough money? Or I have to take care of my mother. Take care of your mother for 6 months and then go for 6 months. Every 3 months. It's possible. Khairan, inshallah ta'ala. Moving forward. After the alat, you have the ghayat, right? And the ghayat, as Al-Hafidh ibn Hajar rahimahullah ta'ala, he said, وَمَدَارُ الْعِلْمِ عَلَى ثَلَاثَةٍ. The 3 main principles of knowledge, the 3 main subjects of ilm, he says, tafsir, what hadith. Those are the things that you should focus on the most. Tafsir, fiqh, halal and haram, and the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. Not mustalah al-hadith, not usul al-hadith, not usul al-fiqh, not usul al-tafsir. Those are the what? The alat. But the ghaya, the actual destination in which you want to remain and stay at for some time, is the actual Quran itself. Is the actual sunnah itself. Everyone clear on this? Learning and studying the seerah itself. I believe that the point is more than clear. Moving forward, the Shaykh Rahimahullah Ta'ala, he says, point number 17, تلقي العلم عن الأشياخ, taking knowledge from the teachers and from the scholars. Then after that, he says, الفصل الثالث أداب الطالب مع شيخه, the etiquettes that you are to keep with your teacher. Number 18, رعاية حرمة الشيخ, never forgetting the sacredness of your teacher. Number 19, رأس مالك من شيخك, القدرة بصالح أخلاقه وكريم شمائله. Your capital sums is to take the good character of your teacher. So what if you have a teacher that has bad character? What if you have a sheikh that has bad character? Be mindful. Number 20, nashatu sheikh fi darsihi. He says here is paying attention to the energy and the stamina of your teacher, not overburdening him, nor you yourself slacking. Number 21, al-kitabatu an al-sheikh ala darsi wal-mudhakara, taking notes and making revision. Is it recommended to talaqi an al-mubtadi'? He says, taking from Vader, احذر المبتدع الذي مسه زيغ العقيدة وغشيته صحب الخرافة يحكم الهوى إلى آخر كلامه رحمه الله. Not to take from an innovator. Your teacher should be a person of sunnah, someone of righteousness, of piety, with a correct creed. Point number 23 is in Al-Fasl al-Rabi' Adab al-Zamala, the etiquettes with your peers, the etiquettes with your classmates, how to behave with your classmates. إحذر قرن أو قرين السوء. He says, beware of bad friends, beware of evil friends. خيرا إن شاء الله. الفصل الخامس آداب الطالب في حياته العلمية, the etiquette of the student of knowledge and the seeker of knowledge with regards to your career. How you teach, what do you do? Number 1, point 24, كبر الهمة في العلم, high aspirations. We explained that already. To have what? High aspirations. Point number 25, النهمة في الطلب عليك بالاستكثار من ميراث النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم, is to have greed. To have greed, to have a large appetite, a strong appetite for knowledge, and not to suffice yourself with a few morsels. Point number 26, الرحلة في الطلب أو رحلة للطلب, traveling to seek knowledge. We explained that last night. The wisdoms of traveling to seek knowledge. And it's much more than just information. Getting away from distractions, getting away from comfort, and most importantly is sacrifice. Sacrificing for knowledge. Point number 27, حفظ العلم كتابة, writing things down. And don't just rely on your memory. Make a journal, make a notebook, have a diary, preserve your knowledge. Point 28, حفظ الرعاية, following what you learn and what you study, and being upon the best character, as we mentioned before, taking the sunnah and implementing the sunnah. Number 29, تعاهد المحفوظات, is review and revision. Review and revision. You have to review and you have to revise. But the question is now, and it'll be for you, Abu Isa, what do you do if you've been studying for so many years and there are smaller books? How do you review those books when you don't have the time? You're teaching classes, you're in big books. How do you review the smaller books? By teaching them. Ahsant. That's one way, is by what? Teaching them. And the second way is not to review them at all. Because there's certain books that are only stepping stools. They're only meant for a period in your studies, and that's it. And then you actually learn the aqidah directly from the Quran now. You learn the rulings directly from the hadiths now. There's no more umdat al-fiqh anymore. It's now directly from the text. وهكذا. Now, moving forward. Point number 29 or point number 30. التفقه بتخريج الفروع على الأصول. It's to branch off. Branch off. The specifics come from the foundations. Now, the subtleties come from the fundaments. Point number 31. اللجوء إلى الله تعالى في الطلب والتحصيل. Is never forgetting about Allah, returning back to Allah, having a connection with Allah. We mentioned this last night as well. The fa'idah of the adhkar al-shar'iyyah. Point number 32. Al-amanatul ilmiyah is the trust of knowledge. You have to have scientific integrity. In other words, don't steal. Don't bite. You come across a fa'idah from someone, attribute that fa'idah to what? To them. Don't plagiarize. You write a book, you write the book. And if you quote from someone, there's nothing wrong with that. You benefit, you borrow, it's nothing wrong with that. But you have to say, قال فلان جاء في كتاب كذا. And this is something that many people infringe upon. Rather, there are people that may hate you outwardly, and they are the greatest of your students inwardly. We call them in America undercover lovers. Don't understand this? They say this about you outwardly, but at home they're doing what? Have we said what? Watching HadithDisciple, and benefiting, but they don't give any respect or pay homage. The Sheikh, he warns from this. He warns from this. Moving forward, point number 33, الصدق اللهجة عنوان الوقار وشرف النفس السري. طيب. He says honesty, truthfulness. Previously explained that, not to be a liar and not to be accused of lying. How many of us today have been caught in scandal? Stealing money, embezzling money, making zina, being pedophiles, using our Islamic status to be with a woman and have sex with a woman and divorce her the next day. How many of us have been caught in these scandals? Even if it hasn't been proven. Was Ibn Taymiyyah ever accused of being a womanizer? Did he ever say Imam Ahmed slept with a woman and abused a woman and used his status to take her virginity and then discard her the next day? They called Ibn Taymiyyah Mujassim. They called him this, they called him that. Some people even called him a kafir. But they never ever attacked his honor and his integrity. Never. They never said he's a thief, he eats money. They never ever said these things, let alone people that have been proven to fall into these horrible acts. This is food for thought to just think about now. Someone is always in scandal and controversy with these base, foul acts. They are unsuited to teach knowledge. They are unsuited to give knowledge. Everyone understand this? Moving forward. 34. Junnatul talib al-ilm. Junnatul alim la adri. He says the shield of the student of knowledge. The shield. The shield of the student of knowledge and of the scholar is to say, I don't know. That protects you. If you don't know, you don't know. And there's nothing embarrassing about that. If there was only enough time for us to explain the benefit of this, and the best person I've seen to explain this point is Sheikh Sa'di, rahimahullah ta'ala. He mentions the fawaid of saying, we've done this in videos before. طيب, moving forward, he says here, we're about to finish now, 35. Al-muhafadha al-ihtimalik sa'at umurika. He says, sticking to, he says, keeping what? Ra's malik, the capital. Your time, your hours. Don't waste your time. And beware of time wasters. 26. إجمام النفس خذ من وقتك سويعات تجم بها نفسك في رياض الليل كتب المحاضرات الثقافة العامة. You must have pleasure reading. You must have leisure reading, which is beneficial and wholesome. Everything doesn't have to be technical, but you have to read stories, read poetry, read fiqh riddles, al-ghas, fiqhiyya, things that give you mental exercise, and it's easy and it's light. Now I'm like snacks, right? You have a meal and you have a what? You have a snack. Everyone understand? You're hungry, Nafis, you may have the munchies, right? But you're not necessarily hungry for a meal. طيب, moving forward. Number 37, قراءة التصحيح والضبط. He says reading precisely. Being precise and reading to someone, like he said before, shaykhin mutqin. Someone that can fix your errors and your mistakes. And not just running through it and finishing. But reading it what? laser guided, right? Accuracy. Number 38, جرد المطولات من أهم المهمات. He says stripping longer books and breaking them down into smaller books. But doing it what? Yourself. Doing it yourself. Point number 39, حسن السؤال, is knowing or perfecting the art of asking a question. Perfecting the art of asking a question. How to ask, when to ask and when not to ask. What to say, and most importantly, who to ask. It's an art in itself. That's a lecture, it's a workshop in itself. The fiqh of asking questions. Number 40, al-munazara bila mumarah. He says scientific debating. Not arguing and squabbling and fighting and cursing and insulting, but having a scientific-based debate. Munaqasha, ilmiya. I mean, understand this, in which we're trying to get to a conclusion. Point number 41, mudhakaratul ilm, is review of knowledge. Point number 42, talibul ilm ya'ish bayna al-kitabi wa sunnah wa ulumiha. The book and the sunnah and its sciences. Point number 43, istikmalu adawat kulli fannin, is perfecting the auxiliary sciences for each field, for each fan, each science. Khairan, inshallah. Then after that, we have a few more pages. I believe we have to stop now. We've run out of time. Is there any time left? We'll finish after Maghrib, after Q&A. Okay, so we're on page 18. It's 26 pages. It's Fasl al-Sadis. Then there's a Fasl al-Sabi'. Then that's it. So we just have what? 2 chapters left in which we can breeze through. I would like to get them done now, but if we have to stop, then we stop. That's not a problem. After Maghrib? Inshallah. Bi'idhnillah. Allah Azza wa Jalla knows best. Sallallahu sallam wa barak ala abdihi wa rasulihi nabiyina Muhammad. You don't mind, Sheikh. Use the mic.